Welcome back to the Rundown Lab, where we break down and fact-check the biggest health podcasts. We know your time is valuable, but when you can, we always recommend catching the full episode. Links are in the description. What if I told you that sitting down to listen to this podcast might already be affecting your blood vessels? That's one of the intriguing claims we're looking at today. In a recent episode titled, "The US Just Announced a $1 billion Plan to Fix Our Health," Paul Saladino discusses the physiological effects of prolonged sitting and what we can do about it. He covers everything from vascular function to inflammatory markers to a government initiative that supposedly includes mini gyms in airports. Let's dig into what the science actually says. I want to start by giving credit where it's due, because there's actually quite a bit this episode gets right. The core claim that vascular function begins to decline within just 1 hour of sitting is well supported by peer-reviewed research. A notable study by Thosar and colleagues, published in Medicine and Science in Sports and Exercise, demonstrated significant reductions in femoral artery flow-mediated dilation after just 60 minutes of uninterrupted sitting. Other research has replicated these findings. Saladino also accurately describes what's happening at the cellular level. The endothelium, which is the inner lining of your blood vessels, does become dysfunctional during prolonged sitting. This happens because reduced blood flow means less shear stress on vessel walls, which decreases nitric oxide availability and impairs your blood vessels' ability to dilate properly. This is legitimate physiology. The episode also correctly notes that less than 50% of Americans engage in significant physical activity weekly. CDC data shows that only about 23 to 28% of Americans meet both aerobic and muscle strengthening guidelines. If we're talking aerobic guidelines alone, roughly half meet that threshold. So, depending on your definition of significant activity, this claim holds up. And the discussion of myokines is on solid ground too. These are real signaling molecules released by contracting muscles, and many of them do have anti-inflammatory effects. The research here is robust and growing. Now let's look at where things get more complicated. The claim that inflammatory markers begin rising after 2 to 3 hours of sitting is mostly accurate, but that time frame is somewhat approximate. Most studies examine longer durations, typically 3 to 6 hours or more. The precise onset varies depending on which inflammatory markers you're measuring and individual factors like age and baseline health. So while the general concept is correct, the specific timing is less precisely documented than presented. Similarly, the claim that 3 to 5 minutes of light exercise can restore vascular function is largely supported, but with some caveats. The Thosar study I mentioned found that 5-minute walking breaks every hour prevented the decline in vascular function. However, most research specifically used walking. The evidence for pull-ups, push-ups, and air squats is more limited, though physiologically plausible. And while vascular function restoration has strong evidence, the claim about reducing inflammatory markers with such brief activity is less robustly studied. One small technical note. Myokines are more accurately described as cytokines, or signaling molecules, rather than hormones in the classical sense. This is a minor point, but worth clarifying for accuracy. There are 2 claims that warrant more serious attention. First, the episode states that 70% of Americans are classified as obese. This conflates 2 different statistics. According to CDC data, approximately 42% of American adults are obese, meaning they have a BMI of 30 or higher. The 70+% figure refers to Americans who are either overweight or obese combined. That's an important distinction because overweight and obese are clinically different categories with different health implications. The actual obesity rate is roughly 42%, not 70%. Second, the claim about the Department of Transportation announcing $1 billion in grants for airport upgrades, including mini gyms, is unverified. While the DOT does provide substantial airport infrastructure grants through programs like the FAA Airport Improvement Program and bipartisan infrastructure law funding, I couldn't verify a specific announcement that includes mini gyms as a funded component. This may be mischaracterized or based on a source that's difficult to confirm. Fitness facilities would be an unusual federal funding priority, so this particular claim needs more verification before accepting it. So here's the bottom line. This is a reasonably well-grounded health discussion. The core physiological claims about sitting and vascular function are supported by peer-reviewed research, and the advice to take brief movement breaks throughout the day is scientifically sound. The main issues are a statistical error that overstates obesity prevalence and an unverified claim about government funding for airport gyms. Neither of these undermines the central health message, which is that prolonged sitting has measurable negative effects and brief activity breaks can help counteract them. If you take away one thing, let it be this. The science really does support getting up and moving for a few minutes every hour. Your blood vessels will thank you.